welcome back home.
Great to see you, Sam.
Very nice to see you. Now, your roots in Rochester obviously run deep.
Sure.
What are your feelings on being back here?
I love it. I come back a couple times a year to visit my family. My parents still live here. And yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Rochester.
Well, we need fans.
Yeah.
Now, if you could talk us through the story of how you ended up looking at with Andy and playing with Vetiver, it'd be great. Hear it from the horse's mouth.
Well, I was I was playing with another band, a band based in Philadelphia called Espers, which contains it's sort of one of the main leaders of that band is another Rochester native, Greg Weeks, and I'd met Greg here in Rochester maybe in 2000 or so, maybe 1999, sometime around then. And but anyways, Greg moved down to Philadelphia and started this band Espers. I started playing with them shortly after that band began, and Espers played a show with Vetiver in the summer of 2004, and I met Andy during that tour, or at that show in Philadelphia, and just sort of stayed in touch with him. I guess maybe a couple months after that show, he was in New York for some other reason, and came out and saw me play a show with my friend Kevin Barker, and I think we like sort of mentioned it would be cool to play some music sometime. At this point, Vetiver was him on guitar with Alyssa Anderson on cello and Jim Gaylord on violin, much more sort of minimal acoustic kind of affair. He expressed interest in maybe adding some drums at some point, and yeah, I guess I sat in with them for the first time shortly after that, where I just happened to be passing through Albany. Vetiver was playing a show. I came out to see the show and sat in on like just percussion, maybe like a frame drum or something.
Much in the spirit of the spontaneity of the band.
Yeah, and that was a fun time. And then this is still fall of 2004 maybe. And shortly after that, Andy asked me to be part of recording the band's second record, and that was early 2005. Doing I know anywhere from like 100 to 200 shows a year with him ever since then.
And now, how difficult is it for you to adjust to the constant change that occurs in the personnel of Vetiver? I know it's been somewhat more stable, but for example, Andy spoke very highly of the playing report between you and Sanders.
Oh yeah.
Last year. How much of an adjustment is that? One would imagine you'd have to be on your toes.
Well, to a degree, I think that all of the musicians that have ever been in the band are at have a certain level of musicianship. So it's everyone's pretty easy to adjust and maybe make accommodations from their normal playing style, just so we're all pretty much automatically on an even playing field. It's I mean, not that we play jazz ever, but it might be sort of similar to a group of jazz musicians who meet for a gig. Like it's sort of you would never really. It's not really
it doesn't put a bump in things.
Yeah, it's not really. It's not a situation for them, and I don't think it's really been a situation with us so much either. I think we've just sort of adjusted in certain ways pretty quickly, so that all the transitions between new members have been pretty smooth.
Now, from the sounds of the last couple of records, it sounds like you've been able to make a significant contribution in the studio. I was hoping you could talk about how much room you have, how much of a hand you have in what ends up being the overall production sound. I mean, I can tell as soon as this little tight bit started that there are touches that I recognize from having heard your previous work when you were living here.
Right. Well, I would say that Andy gives me pretty free reign to arrange my own drum parts, whereas for him being a guitarist, for like lead guitar parts, he might have a specific guitar part in mind, or he's played bass in bands also, so he oftentimes might have a very specific bass line. So I would say half of the time it's a situation where you know, he shows me a song and just work on a couple different approaches rhythmically or from a drum perspective to it, and in other times he'll have more of a specific sort of sound or style of drumming that he wants in mind, but that's just sort of workshopping songs maybe before we go in to record them. And then in the studio, the past or all the records have been produced by our friend Tom Monahan, and I've worked on several other records apart from the Vetiver albums with Tom also, and he's always, I mean, it's like being in the studio working with any producer where you know, if they feel something's not working, even if you've been playing a part live for a while, they might ask you to tweak it or try something else, because what sounds really good live might not sound so good recorded, and there might be elements that are added that you can't really replicate in a live situation that the producer might have in mind for recording, so you sort of end up tweaking things. So I'd say it's sort of like a group thing where I'm not necessarily being told what to do, but you know, I'm bringing suggestions, producer and Andy are all bringing suggestions.
Right, and there's some sort of mutual guidance there.
That's generally how it works. I can't think of a single song on any of the 3 albums that I've done with Vetiver where me or Tom or Andy have just been like, this is what I'm playing, and you know, not switching anything. It's just a real sort of mutual collaboration.
There's
I think that's I think that's pretty normal for any drummer working in a studio situation.
Well, last question for you.
Yeah.
What else are you up to these days? Who else are you playing with?
Well, Vetiver was on tour a lot this year, so mostly the past 12 months, mostly just been focusing on that. Recently, I've done some recording and playing with a woman named Larkin Grimm, who's a New York-based singer-songwriter who has a couple of albums out. So I recorded up in Catskill, New York with her on a couple different occasions, and played a couple shows in New York with her recently. But besides that, just I live in upstate New York, a couple hours north of New York City, and just like staying there and practicing and trying to write and teach and all that fun stuff. When I'm not on the road, I'm very much a homebody, so yeah.
All right, well, welcome back home.
Yeah,
it's very,
definitely.
very nice to see you
so
again.
great seeing you too, Savvy.